For the people who might be wondering what I have been saying in the end of my last few episodes, tot ziens is Dutch for see you later, and doei is a Dutch slang for bye. But since we are just starting here, I want to say hoi, which is hi or hello in Dutch. And why is that? Because we are talking about how is it to do an MBA in the Netherlands in the city of Maastricht. I am Parth and you are listening to Dhvani. We discussed about how it was in terms of our personal reality being a student here, what we were thinking before coming here, and what are the difficulties while looking for jobs in the last episode, which was part 1 of this discussion. If you haven't listened to that, I would request you to first go and do that and then come back to this part again. It will be much better, trust me. In this part, we talk about, especially May talks about some very interesting suggestions that she has for a lot of entities connected to the area of education, job hunting, and everything else with respect to the challenges that we have faced ourselves. So please make sure that you listen to the whole episode. It's gonna be very, very useful. By the time you listen to this episode, I would have moved to Athens in Greece, hopefully with not a lot of difficulties. If this movement affects the schedule of this podcast, I will surely let you know. But for now, it's gonna be the same. Again, since we are no experts, we are just going to talk about our personal experiences, what we think, and what can be done to avoid some situations that we might have faced during our masters and afterwards during the time of job seeking. No intentions whatsoever to hurt anyone in any way. And with that disclaimer, let us begin with the remaining discussion with my lovely friend May. Here we go.
I feel like we're doing all of these, we're amending and editing our CVs so that we can rig the system, get the ATS to select us. And how efficient is that? And I have also a nice story I heard from a headhunter. She was telling us that some people would copy a lot of keywords from the job post and then they would paste it in a place in their CV in a white font so that the ATS would register all keywords. When the recruiter sees the CVs, he won't see yours because anyway, they just put somewhere on the... Shit. So to me, it was like, okay, cool. So if you're rigging the system, you're gonna find, it's just, when you create a loophole, you're gonna see more loopholes. So if you found a way to infiltrate, to screen applicants so quickly based on binary criteria, of course you're gonna find people will get creative to rig the system back. And so many HR experts that I'm watching and reading and listening to, many of them, this statement is everywhere. The recruitment system is unfair. You have to stand out. And when I hear this, to me, I take it frustrates me a little. So because if we know that the system is rigged and it's unfair, let's change it. It's not a physical fact. It's not a biological fact. We can change it. So it seems that the way that recruitment is being solved is by the introduction of machines.
Nobody wants to spend money on HR.
But I mean, why are we addressing a consequence? Why not go to the specific root cause of the problem?
Exactly.
If the recruitment system is inefficient, you're getting a lot of applicants who don't match the roles. Your problem is you want to receive applicants that match the role, not to reject people. So yes, with the ATS, it feels like, for example, I've applied to the same job, one with a specific CV and one with an ATS friendly CV. One was rejected and the other was accepted. And when I was looking at the, my application from the first CV was rejected in less than an hour. When I saw that it's less than an hour, like, what happened? Definitely no human has touched it. And I was a good match to the role.
Without those keywords and everything, right?
It was even worse than the keywords. It was that ATS systems don't, mostly, from what I've been told, do not read the contents of tables. And to me, I feel that if there's a system that does not read contents of table or special characters and cannot really assess synonyms or sentences structures, how is it being used to assess people who are human beings, who are very complex beings, and assess their potential? How is a machine that cannot, ATS, who cannot really tell the difference between which word and which word is used, can assess our potential?
Super unfair. This is like...
So
unfair.
I feel there is a mismatch between, for example, the HR field talks about doing and what it's actually doing. Because I'm hearing a lot of talk about, managing the performance of your employees and your applicants based on what they can do, not what they have done, not their past performance. But then when you come to their recruitment, all they look at is your past experience, not what you're willing to do with it.
Exactly. That was my next point.
And I also want to add about the ATS thing is is that it's a very new technology. It's being used in mass, and job seekers and job hunters, we don't know the perspective of the recruiters when it comes to ATS. How are you using it? What should we do to submit good applications, to use the ATS for our benefit? We don't know that perspective. We don't even know how many CVs recruiters receive, for example. So we cannot really assess how much can we stress on them to get a personalized feedback for why our application was rejected, because we don't know what they're going through. And when we try to look up, and I tried to look up a lot, but I want to know what the perspective of the HR recruiter and the HR manager, what do you see? And we get all these idealistic articles about everyone talking about enriching people and developing them and encouraging them and go for your passion and beautiful words. But they're not real.
But it's not happening in the
What
end.
is the use of poetry if we cannot use it in our daily lives? I would much rather the recruiter would come telling me, if you do not match the job posting 100%, do not waste my time. To me, this is not being mean. This is actually helping me and him and them, save energy and save time. Now, for example, with the motivation letters, maybe your CV is very specific to one sector. You're attempting a career change, so you have the motivation letter that kind of,
you have the intent and the passion and everything.
The passion and the experience and some ideas about what you want to how do you want to help the company. But not everyone reads the motivation letter. Some recruiters say write it short, some write it long, keep it simple, keep it innovative.
We don't want it at all.
It's confusing about that. And so we don't know what can we do to make the recruiter's life easier. For example, the result of this misalignments between us and the recruiters, we get many, for example, the motivation letter, which we pour our heart and soul into. We have to tailor it a lot to make a good case. Would not be read even.
That's very disheartening.
And this is why, for example, we would like to hear from HR, from the HR's perspective.
At least tell us.
Tell us.
What
do
happened?
You want a motivation letter of 300 words? Is this what you... I was wondering maybe if companies could, all of them, have like an HR blog on their website or somehow so that they would each explain what they see, or maybe also help us as job hunters to tell them about our experience with them, what can we do to discuss, so that at least this ever-morphing gap that we were talking about earlier on, you and I, between the required skills and the skills available in the labor market. There's an ever-morphing gap. Why is it ever-morphing? Because everyone is working in a different direction. Recruiters are this way, innovators are this, technology is this way, job applicants are this way, and unless you're in the company, you don't know what is needed. So we need to communicate a little bit so that job hunters, job seekers would acquire the skills that are needed, or would prepare at least for the skills needed. And maybe companies could, in a way, adjust their innovation rate to their resources, to their human resources. Because if you have a technological innovation that is going to cut a lot of your loss and make everything so much faster, but no one in the job market currently, or very few people in the job market can fulfill that position. What is the use? Say you found that person, and then there are many people who will be applying, there are many people who are out of jobs.
A lot of wastage happens in this process. And since you mentioned about this, like everybody is in different directions, I think at a very high level, we recognize at some point that the industry, the business asks for something, but the academia is giving something else. At least this is what happened in our school. That's what I think. And I'm sure this might be a problem with other schools as well. So I don't understand like how businesses and schools are tackling this. Because what I can say is that B schools, this is also something from one of my researches in the very early stages of my MBA hunt, where I found that B school business is the biggest in the world. Like all these B schools make a lot of money out of education, which is a separate thing altogether. It cannot be connected to how many people you have given out. Like, where is your product going in the market? Like, if a B school is a company, let's say, if it's an organization, you get students and you are graduating students as a product for the consumers that are the businesses out there, right? So this is a very tricky situation, and people need to look into this very deeply before they decide to pursue an MBA, I think, after my experience. And
actually, I got an idea about this, for example, since you were thinking about giving some tips for those considering this. Maybe what I would have done before, I would have made this list of 10 companies I would like to join. This is a tip I heard from one of the headhunters. So you create that list of companies that you really want to join, say in the Netherlands, since I'm coming to the Netherlands, or all over Europe. And then I would email, I would advise anyone interested in the MBA to contact these HR managers or someone from the C-suite in those companies and ask them, how do they perceive the MBA, or like considering your profile, do they think
before coming to the
MBA, at least
true.
you have a sense of how companies will perceive you after the MBA, because since there is a lot of talk about MBA not being, useful at all, check that with your company, with your
aspirations.
at least with the list of companies that you're interested in. I would like to reiterate that I do believe that the MBA is important. To me, the MBA inadvertently taught me a lot. Just by even having the course of finance and accounting, which were completely alien to me. It made me understand things, see things a whole lot different.
Like for me, I can gauge it in a way where I can't say that I am a master in this thing now, but at least I know about it. I can
understand it.
I can read about it now, which I used to ignore earlier.
And more than read about it, say in a company and you are in one department and you have to coordinate with other departments that are not part of your specialties. With an MBA, you can at least understand the basics so you can communicate with them better. And you know how to find common grounds between what you want and what they want, and then the collaboration will be successful. Just by having dipped your toes in many waters, now you can know how to balance.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing in a way.
So but definitely, since it's so debatable, the value of an MBA, definitely I would say for people thinking about it, contact HR managers and see how they perceive it.
That's very true. Actually, this is a very interesting point, because now all the dream companies that I had, they don't care about MBA. So this is the thing. This feels so stupid that I never looked into it. I was hoping that if I do an MBA and if I write a beautiful motivation letter telling them about my intent and my interest in this area, they would accept me. But that's not the case. Which might happen to a lot of people.
And maybe also it might happen to other sectors, not just the MBA, because maybe other people don't necessarily see the value of this sector, one, or this certificate or that one. But I still believe definitely that MBA is capable of creating managers, not the kind of managers we saw last year in that ad, but managers who are aware of the rest of the company. And I do believe it's necessary.
Like the difference between my expectations and reality has been there. There was some expectations where I was expecting that it would be hard for me to get a job. So that's more or less same as the reality. It is hard to get a job. But as you mentioned about the popularity of MBA, that was something unexpected, that I was not expecting that people just don't give any value to MBA, because this is quite a global degree today. And I expected employers to know about it, which was a surprise for me.
What I expected mainly of coming to the Netherlands and doing an MBA was to find more opportunities that were available in my home country. And also Lebanon was going economically bad, and then in October 2019 things blew up, and right now we're having a lot of difficulties. So objectively speaking, I still have more opportunities here.
Fun fact, now with the pandemic, the situation is more...
made everything more difficult. I didn't feel like the pandemic really decreased my chances, because it seems that I still find job posts and I still receive the quick rejections. So things are
pretty
more
much
or less...
same,
pretty much the same. But I hope to receive something new. Maybe if the situation in Lebanon was a little bit more calmer, I might have considered going back there for a while to recollect all my strength and to be able to get certificates that now, even after having graduated with an MBA, now the recruiters have told me that I need the certificate and that and then this. So now, if there's a lesson I learned from the whole experience, many lessons, but the lesson I did not expect to learn was to prepare. You have to prepare, and don't think you can live without networks. I came to the Netherlands because I thought things are so systematic and they don't really need us to rig the system by creating a network and by calling on the phone, speaking on the phone. I thought everything will be on the websites, online, streamlined already.
That fairness that you expected out of
not necessarily fairness, but at least organization, streamlining. Streamlining. Turn out that it's not. So, and you cannot know this by research. You have to talk to people to know this. So if you are considering moving to a different country, I don't know if other people have this approach. I used to be an advocate of the dive head in. I don't look. I don't even watch trailers of movies. I just go in and be surprised. And generally things happen well. And if you want to learn, you can learn and make things
if you have the intent, you do that.
But you can significantly improve your chances of getting what you want if you research not just online. Get in personal contact and get on the phone with people from the country that you're interested in going to, so that they can tell you these unspoken things, things about language, things about which area they will not hire from, which career path that is acceptable or not, etc.
Thanks a lot for sharing your feedback and your insights and your experiences with us. And maybe this is one part of the many discussions that we would like to have further, because there are many other areas that come out of this discussion. The school that we attended, we can talk about that. The areas that you would want to target, or maybe there are people who would want to work in the areas that you want to work in. We can talk about that. I can talk about my background. I came from fashion technology. I've been applying in fashion technology. I'm getting no jobs. So why is that? So we can talk about these areas as well.
Yeah, and I think this is what's nice.
Like I'm putting all the keywords in everything. Like I was a merchandiser. I am trained as a merchandiser. I apply for a fucking job as a merchandiser. I get rejected. Why? Somebody explain that to me.
I also was rejected. I worked for 7 years in internal communication. I come from a background of organizational psychology and HR. Did an MBA. And I was applying to a job of internal communication to support HR. And I was rejected.
Actually, one thing, since you mentioned this because I thought this might be the reason. Do you think being a non-European is a thing and employers don't tell you about it openly?
Yes, I definitely believe so. And I had an experience about this with this particularly. One of the rejections I received really quickly to a job that I matched very nicely with caught my eye. So I called the recruiter to ask about the rejection, given that my CV is a complete match. And the recruiter told me first that I don't have the experience. When I pointed her to the CV, to my CV, just like it's mentioned here and there, she told me, oh yes indeed, but you don't have the right to work in the EU, and we have to get people from the EU.
Why couldn't you tell this in the first go?
And this is not an exceptional case, because also when I was rejected to another job that I was a very good match with, I asked a headhunter, because here I said I don't want to assume, since that company is not replying to me. I asked the headhunter, and she told me it's probably because you don't have the work in EU and you kind of live in Maastricht, and also maybe you need to edit this and that with your CV. But it's not just on our minds. It's not that we're not accepted. And even recruiters are asking this. Headhunters are telling me this straight up. You live in Maastricht, you don't have the right to work in EU. And this clashes a little bit with all the fair competition, fair trade, fair...
everything.
All the fair words that are being used. Especially in Europe.
Right.
They clash.
Because my point is that it's okay. Like feelings of protectionism, nationalism, and all these things are everywhere on a high right now.
But be honest about it.
Be honest about it, and if you cannot employ, then don't educate also in the first place. That's what I'm saying. Like if
what's the point of an international experience?
Exactly.
They say that, okay, as an international experience, you came here, you lived here 1 year, 2 years, did your education, and went back home. To me, this is not really exposure. I came to study here to make it possible for me to work here
and then to understand things.
But when you work in a specific culture, you learn so much from work, even at your own home country. The work is where you learn. This is where you get the culture and your experiences. So if you can give the education, but not what activates the education, which is the job, then maybe either improve it before you launch it, or do not launch it when it's incomplete.
Exactly. When I was talking about the business of these schools altogether, that's where it comes down to that. If you're doing this just for the sake of making business, then you're doing a very good job. But you have an answerability. You have a responsibility to get that student placed. This is a big thing that many people would disagree with this, that you as a student have the responsibility to make yourself employable. It's not just the college. But I would beg to differ, because I came from a faraway land here on a promise. Right? And I don't care if it's the school or it's the people or it's the country. It's a whole package for me. And everybody has to contribute to that somewhere. And that is where I found the mismatch.
I think that universities definitely can play a great part in helping an applicant get a job. I still believe that it is eventually the student's responsibility to land a job. But I also believe that the university has a huge role to play also in terms of connections. For example, since we are in in Maastricht, and companies are much, it's not easy for us to network because there aren't many companies around.
Right.
And so the university could help with making those connections, and also by supporting you on social media, for example. All the people you've met, the faculty and staff and everyone, for example, on LinkedIn, we all share many things. Also, it helps a lot when, for example, your professors or people you have met and experts you have met also interact with your comment on your post, or put a feedback about you on LinkedIn. It's all there online.
Everything,
and LinkedIn plays a great part because it helps you get connections, because if someone trusts a specific industry expert, and this industry expert who, for example, taught you at university, commented on your status, it's going to show on their feeds.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's see this article, and maybe from here and there,
small things that can be done.
Small things like that can be done,
True,
definitely. But there was also one thing I just forgot to mention about business schools being a business
of money-making entity.
Money-making entity. I think also it would make even more money, more profitable, if the MBAs are more aligned to what companies want. I like a framework called the Triple Helix, where in the Triple Helix there would be heavy collaborations between the private sector, the governments, and academia. I believe these three, when they collaborate, they can, for example, create MBAs that are well suited for what the companies would need eventually. So I do believe that there should be not only a conversation between us and recruiters, but also between companies, governments, and at least companies and universities to improve, to at least close this ever-morphing gap.
I really hope that there's something worthy for somebody who would have listened to this. Also, you might know someone who might be planning for an MBA or some kind of higher education outside their home country. The goals of every person are different, but mostly the idea is to get better in some way, right? So please share this podcast with that person. It would really be awesome. If you have some experiences, thoughts, observations, ideas, or anything that you might not have been able to get out in the open, why don't you consider talking to me on this podcast? It might be fun. You never know. You can write to me on info@dhvani.co.in. You can log on to dhvani.co.in/podcasts. You can send me voice notes on my Facebook profile. That way I can directly include your sound in this podcast. Or if you like, you can also DM me on Instagram. All details are there in the show description. Thanks to Dhvani for this awesome discussion. She was my classmate from the MBA, and she's also a very, very dear friend. The show was produced and hosted by me, Parth Chauhan. The theme music was composed by an Italian whose artist name is Cutie Honey Bunch. He also works under a collective called Own Tempo Limited. The branding was done by Soumya Garg, and a great amount of support has been provided by you, my dear listener. So thank you. Dhvani Podcast is on all major platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Amazon Echo, JioSaavn, and everywhere. Please subscribe and follow. It's absolutely free of cost. Well, hope to see you next week. Till then, thank you. Bye. Tot ziens. Doei.